Hey guys, welcome back to the next video. In this video, we are going to talk about how Docker really works when it communicates with internal components and everything. So the Docker client, as I told you earlier, is basically part of your Docker installation. So when you install Docker engine, Docker command line, Docker other stuff, Docker command line comes with certain commands. Okay, so these are the basic commands which we would execute in terms of Docker. So most of the time you'll be executing these commands. Most of the times you'll be more or less executing these two commands in terms of building images, in terms of running those images. In terms of pull, it basically pulls up the image from the content repository, but then doesn't do anything else, just pulls it. When you run Docker hello, okay, so we have the first example of first hands-on where we will be running Docker run Docker hello Docker or hello world, sorry. Hello world is the application. So that basically when you run that, so as I told you earlier, there are three ways of running it. One, directly running the container, which is created on the cloud. So you can run that feature, but even when you run that container, it still has to acquire. So which means that it goes and connects to the Docker daemon, where the Docker daemon should be available and running, and then it goes and connects to your system requires internet, which means that it will go and connect to the Docker registry and then downloads that image. In this case, it's not the Tomcat image it will be downloading. It will be downloading the image called it will be downloading an image called Hello World. Now, this Hello World image will be downloaded to your local system, and it maintains, the Docker will have the location where it maintains all the images, which we will talk later. And then that will be running directly as a container by creating a process ID for this container, PID for this container. And then, sorry, that came wrong. So process ID and then the image ID will be attached as part of the container ID, and the container ID will be spinned up, which will have a process ID, which where it will run on the memory and your CPU. Now this classification, we already spoke about how it uses containerd and run, and using the kernel parameters from Linux, and we have seen those architecture, and it creates this container. Now this is directly running a container which is on the cloud. So it basically, Docker creates a container based on the image, which is already pre-created and stored in a Docker registry. Now, in terms of the second concept which we have seen is basically building your own image for a customized version of HTTP. So in that situation, what you need to do is you need to run Docker build. In terms of, first, you need to specify what kind of a build you need. So you need to write down, you have to open a file called Docker file, capital D Docker file. And in that file, you need to say from what image you want, CentOS 8, CentOS 9, or Ubuntu operating system. First, you can run Docker search with what operating system you want, what flavor of operating system you need. And then it will give you all the options of the name of the image. Okay, so you get that name of the image and you put that name of the image over here. And then you say okay, fine, I want to download, I want to do wget, or I want to install the repositories for Yum, and then I want to Yum install this particular software, or you want to wget and then use Yum to install. So you write down all your commands over here, and then you build the image. So when you build the image, it goes line by line. First, it verifies whether there is any syntax errors which was made in this Docker file. Once it verifies that there is no syntax errors are made, then what it will do is it will go ahead and it issues the command over here to the Docker daemon. Docker daemon then verifies those commands, and then it will send that to the Docker image, and then it will download that particular image. Now here we are downloading just the base image of the operating system. So instead of Tomcat, it will be downloading CentOS. CentOS it will download and pull it over here in your local repository. That's the first job. Now it will say 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4. How it says 4 jobs? Because you have 4 lines of parameters over here that you do this yum update, yum install with this component, and then you do wget with the yum installation of the file, and this becomes like 4 other steps. So it will become like 1 out of 5 steps. So first step is basically to download the image. Second step is to execute this copy command for yum to create a yum repository. Third task is to 3 out of 5. Third task is to run the yum, and fourth task is this one, and fifth task is this particular task. So likewise, it will do all this task, and then finally it's completed. Now this becomes an image now. So firstly, it downloaded that image and it created one layer, and the second item it ran, right? So it created another layer on top of it. Third item it created a third layer. On fourth item it created the fourth layer. So likewise, every time it runs a specific thing, it creates layers on top of each other, and then it adds those images. So this is how Docker is versatile in terms of working with making it a smaller container rather than adding an image into opening an image and adding the file into that. Instead of that, it adds layer on top of each other. That's how it works. In terms of the Docker container, then it's going to run. So how are you going to run it? So you need, after building this image, you can give Docker image to see what are the images you have. And then you will be using the Docker run command in terms of the image name, which you have created, called ABC, Docker run ABC. And then what it will do is like it will go talk to the daemon, and then it goes over here, and then it creates a container with the image ID of ABC and container ID with a process ID for that particular process. In terms of explaining you the third scenario, where we will be installing a Tomcat image for this example, they're very simple. So you go ahead and first pull the image of this one by, you don't have to directly, for example, that you still have to create the image because you have a content over here. So in this Docker file, in this time, so when you're building this one, so rather than pulling, you will be using Docker build. So Docker build, what you will do is like it will take the file for this example. So instead of giving CentOS, you will give Tomcat server. Now Tomcat server is what you will search. So you will see Docker search and then Tomcat, and then you will get a lot of images, and then you choose which image you want and put it over here. So now this image just not contain only the operating system, but also Tomcat and Java. Because without Java, what is the point of packaging Tomcat, right? Because Java is required for you to run Tomcat. So it will have 3 layers. One layer is, I'm just guessing, it may have multiple layers as well, depends on the number of softwares they have installed on top of it. So it may have a base operating system and then Java on top of that and Tomcat. So these are 3 required softwares which it needs to have for sure to run Tomcat. So once it has done that, then your Docker file will have that information. And in this Docker file, you will mention, okay, I have this EAR file. Please copy into this location once the file is created. So this becomes task number 2. Second task. In terms of HTTP server, same thing. The Docker file will have the HTTP image location from HTTP image. And then it will say like, okay, this http.conf, copy it to this location after installing. So what will happen? This will get copied. So this will become first task, second task. And then the image will be built as Tomcat image, which just not have the Tomcat, but it will have your application, which is hosted on this Tomcat. And then it goes and when you build the run command, and it goes and creates a container, and you will see that Tomcat EE container gets created. I mean, I'm just giving you a random name with BCD image. Let's just say if this is the Tomcat image, then it will create as a different container. I hope you understand the real-time workings of Docker. If you have any questions, leave it on the question section. I'll see you on the next video.